Pranam everyone. Welcome to day 11 of the book The Absolute Law of Karma, written by our Param Pujya Gurudev Pandit Shri Ram Sharma Acharya. We were on the topic of mental sufferings, also known as the Daivik Dukh. Till now we understood that any kind of emotion which has a lower frequency and is not aligned with the highest divinity has a natural tendency to be expelled out of the body, whether it's the mental body or the emotional body or the spiritual body, just like we always keep excreting the waste substances out of our physical body. Reading further, death of a beloved person, loss in business and property, public defamation, poverty, etc. are also mental agonies. Such situations bring out the inner pain to the surface, and the aggrieved person weeps, wails, and is reminded of the futility of the worldly attachments and the impermanency of material things. Situations creating acute unhappiness bring out a greater awareness of the need for righteous living. So here Gurudev is giving an example of anything that happens which is not directly under our control or even indirectly not under our control, like the death of a loved one or a loss in the profession or someone humiliating you publicly, even poverty, a place that you are born in, the family that you are born in, or the people you come to get associated with. If there are situations that bring out inner pain to the surface, specifically when you realize that things are not under our control anyway, and how mortal this life is, this human life is, are usually these situations, and then we realize, or then we get a greater awareness or a higher consciousness or a deeper understanding of how temporary everything around us is. Even our own life, which we always take it for granted and we never probably take into account the fact that what if tomorrow is our last day, or what if this year is our last year. And it's extremely surprising, or it's a wonder how we continue to live, explore, breathe, eat, stay, and the way in which we live our lifestyle, thinking that how permanent we are, or in the pursuit of everything that is probably temporary, including our own selves. Man is motivated to refrain from committing sinful deeds in future and follow an upright path in life. While attending funerals, people are reminded of the urgency of living a purposeful life. When suffering from financial loss, man seeks God's help. On being defeated and becoming unsuccessful, vanity is deflated. When the intoxication is over, the drunk begins to talk sense. Here Gurudev is giving us an example of Shamshan Vairagya, known as the feeling of wanting to leave everything when one has attended a funeral, specifically of a loved one. And I, being a girl, had never experienced this until this year in January, when one of my very, very close grandmothers, who was my Nani's sister-in-law, passed away. She was someone who had nurtured me and brought me up for the first 3 years of my life. And I was very attached to her, and I've never seen a dead body being burnt until I saw hers. And just the fact that I could touch her till before this moment and now I cannot, made a very deep impact inside me. And that just made me realize that this will happen to me one day as well. And that moment just shifted something inside me that is absolutely inexplicable, and is something I want to keep with me always, just so that I'm able to live a more righteous, a more committed, a more self-aware, and a more conscious life ahead. And I hope Gurudev grants all of us that sadbuddhi, that righteousness, and that guidance of achieving our higher self. Reading further, the only purpose of mental distress is to cleanse the mind of garbage, of mental pollutants such as jealousy, ingratitude, selfishness, cruelty, heartlessness, cunningness, hypocrisy, and egoism. Through suffering, the intelligent divine mechanism ensures removal of sanskars created by prarabdha karmas. The definition of prarabdha karmas will be discussed later in the book. Pain and anguish spring forth to wash out the deleterious sanskars generated by prarabdha karmas. Deleterious means something that causes harm or damage. So here Gurudev is trying to explain us that if there is any mental distress, any negative emotion as has been enlisted like jealousy, selfishness, cruelty, anger, heartlessness, hypocrisy, egoism, it is here to cleanse our mind, because there is some kind of pollutant or garbage in the inner psyche as mentioned, which needs to be identified and flushed out. When I say identified, we must remember that we are not this body and not this mind, and therefore our thoughts are not us as well. So if there is a thought of hypocrisy, thought of jealousy, thought of anger, it needs to be observed as a third party and then made to be flushed out. So pain and anguish and all such mental distresses come only so as to cleanse our inner being and remove all such sanskars which are nothing but the imprints of the past karmas, and make us more pure, pious, divine, Sat Chit Ananda. Apparently, sins like theft, burglary, robbery, adultery, kidnapping, and violence are committed physically. But since these are basically outer manifestation of the mental stimuli, such acts also fall in the category of mental sins. So, we all know that each act is first born in our minds. There is an emotion that is created which creates a thought that creates a karma or the physical action. So, even if the physical action is something like theft, robbery, adultery, kidnapping, it is also considered as a mental sin because it's first born inside our thought body, energy body, and then manifests further. Now here I feel like sharing about the Buddhi Yoga, wherein it's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita how it is our intellect that needs to be illuminated with divine grace that actually governs the knowledge that our mind has or the decisions that our minds take in. So it's the buddhi, the intellect, the pragya or the shakti of Shambhavi and Ritambara, the vivek, the ability to make a decision based on what is right to do and what is wrong is what the buddhi has. So Buddhi Yoga is mentioned in the Gita, which deals with how our intellect needs to be surrendered to the knowledge of God, and that is what exactly Gayatri Mantra is also all about. The meaning of Gayatri Mantra is Om Bhur-bhuvah Swaha Tat Savitur-Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat, which means, O Brahma, or O Almighty God, who is the embodiment of vital spiritual energy, Pranadayak, Dukhnashak, destroyer of sufferings, embodiment of happiness, Sukhdayak, which is nothing but bright and illuminous like the sun, which is the best and most exalted, Devasya Dhimahi. May we imbibe that Devatva, like the Devtas, the divinity. Dhiyo yo naha prachodayat. Dhiyo yo naha prachodayat phrase actually means, may our intellect be guided and be illuminated as the sun. So this is exactly what is there in the Buddhi Yoga, which illustrates that the whole chariot in which Arjun was riding, Lord Krishna said that this chariot is like your body. You have to move forward with the chariot. So you have to have a body in order to be able to move forward in life. And the charioteer is your intellect. The charioteer decides which way to take this body to, which direction to take in the life. And the horses are our senses, which can be the 5 Jnanendriya and the 5 Karmendriyas, which is our 5 intellect senses and the 5 karma senses. And we know what senses are. We are such slaves to our senses these days. We are more into the physical manifestations of things than about how those things actually feel to us from inside. So the horses are the senses which should actually be governed by the charioteer. And the reins with which the charioteer governs those senses is your mind. And that is why it is always said that make the mind your slave. Do not let the mind rule over you, because if the mind rules over you, then it's the senses taking over. And if it's the horses or the senses taking over, then they may go berserk and take you in any way of your life. And the passenger sitting on the chariot is actually your soul. So in principle, ideally, it should be the soul, the passenger, telling which way to take. But these days we have left that job to the senses, and that's why our journey is so hard to control. Our emotions are all over the place, and we feel that we are not in charge. But if we begin to awaken our soul, which is the passenger of the chariot, and requesting for divine grace, which can illuminate the buddhi or the intellect or the vivek or the pragya, which is the charioteer, then the whole control of the mind and the senses will come back to us, and we can lead the life in the direction which our soul wishes to. It's a beautiful explanation in the Bhagavad Gita of Buddhi Yoga, which I sincerely request all the listeners to please research on and read if they have the opportunity to do so. So we end this audio on this note. Pranam everyone. Hope you enjoyed listening to this.
हमारे YouTube चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कीजिए और बेल आइकन पर क्लिक कीजिए ताकि आने वाली सभी वीडियो की नोटिफिकेशन आपको मिलती रहे। आप सभी को बहुत बहुत थैंक यू।